All right. Bonjour tout le monde. Welcome everybody to the regular sitting of the Demolition Committee of the City of Westmount pour le 14 juin 2022. Welcome everyone. I would like to start with the adoption of the agenda. Councillor Shammy.
I move, Madam Mayor, to adopt the agenda.
A seconder, Councillor Aronson. All in favor? And before we go, before we go any further, I will just lay out, I just have a few comments. And I just want to say thank you for being here. We haven't had this many people in City Hall since I don't know when. We had quite a few last night, but I don't think it was quite so many. So, and it's obviously a testament that this demolition has generated a lot of interest from the community. 178 Côte-Saint-Antoine is a special house, and I'm pleased that the owners who are very committed to this project are here with us tonight. They're also going to present with the architects. They've worked diligently with the city over the past few years, and I also want to thank the Urban Planning Department, in particular, Yuki Kropas, Natalie Jaudoin, and Amélie Pelletier, who have also steered this file through this process for the past couple of years. I would also like to clarify why we're here today. Heritage conservation is about managing change, and the word demolition is a terrifying word, especially in a city like ours, where the heritage of our buildings is very, very important. This type of file and how we're managing this process has not been done before in this city. We are holding the owners to a higher standard than has ever been in place before, because we are holding them to protect the interiors as well, not just the exterior of the building, but also the interiors. Because 178 Côte-Saint-Antoine is a one-star building, is also a category one-star building, any change to the exterior, no matter how minor or major, in some, not in this case, but in other cases, requires a demolition permit. The changes to the exterior of this house amount to approximately 0.5% demolition. The architects from RCTM and the owner of the house are here tonight, and you will see from their presentation that there has been a change in the request in the demolition and is lower than the original request, which is what you might have seen online. After the presentations, members of the audience can make comments, and then we will have a question period. The question must pertain to only what is on the agenda tonight, and that is the demolition. Any demolition permit is then granted once a replacement program is approved by council. But that is really what we are here to discuss tonight, is the demolition process. And this is not unique to this file. This is how we deal with demolition hearings by law in the city. So I want to thank you all for being here. I think it's a testament to our community, the interest. And I think at this point, we will hand it over to, first we actually have to table the Planning Advisory Committee minutes, and Councillor Gallery will do that.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Whereas council is empowered by law to perform the duties of a demolition committee. Am I echoing? Okay. The duties of a demolition committee and exercises all powers granted by law and by law 1317. Not working.
We are all on mute.
There's an online audience. Do I?
Apologies. By the next pandemic, we'll have this all sorted.
Try again.
No. You know what? If you turn off your mic, online should be able to hear you through my mic. Okay, why don't we try that? Okay. Wait, can you hear Mary or Councillor Gallery? Apologies.
Okay, I will. Whereas council is empowered by law to perform the duties of a demolition committee and exercises all power granted by law 1317 concerning demolition of the city of West Mountain. Whereas the Planning Advisory Committee PAC held a special meeting on May 31st, 2022, and minutes were submitted to this council sitting. Whereas the main role of the PAC is to analyze and give an opinion on any requests that must be submitted to in accordance with the Land Use Planning and Development Act, CQLRC A-19.1, example SEAIC, minor extensions, royalties, conditional uses, etc. And on any other application in matters of land use planning and development that is submitted to it by council. I move, Madam Mayor, the council acknowledges the accepted minutes of the special planning advisory committee meeting held on May 31st, 2022.
Thank you, Councillor Gallery. A seconder will be Councillor Aronson. All in favor? Carried. Now, I'll take this time to explain once again, which I covered in my opening comments, that the purpose of this meeting is to render a decision on the demolition application for the building located at 178 Côte-Saint-Antoine Road in accordance with the Act respecting land use and land use planning and development, as well as bylaw 1317 concerning demolition. Madame Amélie Pelletier, who is here with us tonight, an urban planning consultant, will present the demolition project. The applicant will then be invited to make a presentation to the committee members. Any interested persons who sent either comments or oppositions to the city clerk's office within the prescribed time period have been invited to make representations to the committee. The chair may also decide to hear any other persons who wish to make representations to the committee. Once the committee has heard all those who would like to make a statement, we will have the opportunity to withdraw and deliberate on the project. Finally, the committee will render a decision or adjourn to a meeting and render a decision at a later date. A second question period will be available to the public via Zoom webinar. All questions must relate to the demolition application. So now I will hand it over to Madame Pelletier.
Merci. Donc, moi, de mon côté, je vais poursuivre en français.
Merci.
Donc, comme l'a expliqué Madame la mairesse, il s'agit d'une demande de démolition puisque c'est un bâtiment de catégorie 1 étoile et en vertu du règlement de démolition numéro 1317, plus fort, je vais approcher le micro. Le fait de raser, abattre ou autrement détruire tout ou partie d'un immeuble de catégorie 1 étoile, sauf pour procéder aux fenêtres, sauf pour procéder au remplacement à l'identique de fenêtres, portes ou plaquages de murs extérieurs existants. Donc, toute ouverture, légère ouverture sur un bâtiment, sur un mur de maçonnerie d'un bâtiment de catégorie 1 étoile requiert une demande de démolition. Donc, c'est pour cette raison que cette demande-ci est présentée ce soir. Donc, le bâtiment est localisé en face à la rue, chemin Côte-Saint-Antoine, donc près de l'avenue Metcalfe et Mount Stephen. C'est un bâtiment résidentiel de 2 étages qui est fait à plan carré, comme on peut le voir sur le certificat de localisation. Il est sur un lot qui mesure près de 2000 mètres carrés, donc de très grande superficie. Le bâtiment qui est visé par la demande, je pense que ça a été très bien mentionné en introduction par Madame la mairesse, mais c'est un bâtiment patrimonial donc, qui date des années environ 1840, qui a été conçu par l'architecte, en fait c'est un architecte présumé selon les études qu'on a au dossier, par John Wells, qui est de style Régence et néo-grec, dont les matériaux principaux sont la maçonnerie de pierre. Il y a eu un règlement de citation, donc le bâtiment a été cité au niveau municipal. Le règlement de citation est le 1552. La citation a eu lieu environ en 2020. Pardon. Pour ce qui est des interventions, en fait, il s'agit principalement d'un projet de conservation et d'agrandissement. Par contre, il y a certains travaux qui sont assujettis au règlement de démolition. Ça, en fait, c'est par rapport à la demande qui a été déposée initialement. Donc, il y a des travaux qui sont assujettis au règlement de démolition sur la façade avant, sur la façade latérale et sur la façade arrière. Je vais aller de façon plus détaillée. Donc, pour ce qui est de la façade avant, il y a le démantèlement du portique et la reconstruction qui sera fait selon l'implantation et les détails du portique d'origine. En ce moment, l'état du vestibule ne permet pas sa restauration. La fondation et l'ensemble de la structure de bois qui est non isolée sont à refaire. Pour ce qui est des travaux de démolition sur la façade latérale, tel que ça a été déposé en 2021, c'est une ouverture, en fait, sur la façade latérale pour une nouvelle porte d'accès au sous-sol. Par contre, je mentionne qu'on a reçu des dessins révisés hier de la part des demandeurs, en fait, en vue de réduire la portée de la démolition qui exclurait la nouvelle porte sur la façade latérale, donc qui exclurait la nouvelle ouverture, en fait, sur la façade latérale. Suite à ma présentation, les demandeurs vont poursuivre et pourront détailler de façon, pourront en fait détailler et vous montrer avec une vue et des perspectives l'élévation latérale qui sera proposée dans le projet. Pour ce qui est des travaux de démolition sur la façade arrière, en fait, il y aura un démantèlement de la serre et de la galerie et de la structure d'accès au sous-sol en but de créer un nouveau volume de 2 étages sur la façade arrière. Ceci impliquera aussi qu'il y a des modifications des ouvertures existantes, comme on voit ici, et le retrait des fenêtres et des portes ici. Et en vue de créer une connexion avec le nouveau volume, le seuil des ouvertures seront abaissés au niveau du plancher à l'intérieur. Donc, je vous présente maintenant le programme préliminaire, mais qui pourra être présenté de manière plus détaillée par les architectes au dossier suite à ma présentation. Donc, comme j'expliquais, il s'agit d'un nouveau volume à l'arrière de 2 étages qui sera principalement visible de la cour arrière. Maintenant, en ce qui a trait aux procédures, en vertu du règlement de démolition ainsi que la loi sur l'aménagement et l'urbanisme, il y a un avis public qui a été publié le 17 mai 2022. L'affichage sur l'immeuble aussi eu lieu le 17 mai 2022. Suite à ça, il y a une période qui est allouée de 10 jours pour recevoir des commentaires et des oppositions de toute personne intéressée. Donc, c'est la période qui s'est terminée le 27 mai. Le CCU a vu le dossier le 31 mai 2022. Le CCU a émis une recommandation défavorable à la démolition lors de sa séance le 31 mai. Et aujourd'hui, on se trouve la période de décision du comité de démolition. Donc, le comité devra autoriser, le comité autorise la démolition s'il est convaincu de l'opportunité de la démolition, compte tenu de l'intérêt public et de l'intérêt des parties, et plus particulièrement de l'état de l'immeuble ou des immeubles visés dans la demande, de la détérioration de l'apparence architecturale ou du caractère esthétique du voisinage, du coût de la restauration, de l'utilité projetée du sol dégagé et de tout autre critère pertinent. Donc, c'est des critères qui se retrouvent dans le règlement de démolition. Merci. Donc, je vais inviter maintenant les demandeurs à prendre la parole. Monsieur Sibthorpe va d'abord faire une introduction. Ensuite, les architectes au dossier, Madame Mira Katnick et Andrea Wolf vont poursuivre.
Merci, Madame Pelletier. Welcome, Mr. Sibthorpe.
It works, yeah. Good afternoon. My name is Robert Sibthorpe, and this is Leslie Paul, Westmount residents since 2015, and owners of 178 Côte-Saint-Antoine or 178 CSA. Thank you, Mira from Architem for presenting today. Thank you, Mayor Smith and council members for your time. Thank you to the Westmount Urban Planning Department. I also welcome the interest of fellow citizens of Westmount. This presentation by our team is the accumulation of 2 years of hard work. For those who are interested, we are residents of Westmount currently paying 2 property taxes. We are here to finally tell our story. We bought this home of 178 CSA on June 15th, 2020. Today is June 14th, 2022. 2 days after we bought the house officially, we found out that 178 CSA was sold to us by false pretenses. It was sold to us as a Category 1 star with the full knowledge of all interested parties at the time that the citation status of this building and landscape would change. This information was withheld from us on the seller's declaration. In fact, the seller forbid the city of Westmount to disclose this confidential information. 1 month after we bought this house, we were legally served by a bailiff the accumulation of years of work, and I'm sure hundreds of thousands of taxpayers' dollars commissioned by the city and the Westmount Historical Society, a new bylaw citing 178 CSA as a historical immovable. To spell this out to all of you, if we knew this at the time, we would never have bought 178 CSA. We bought 178 CSA because we really loved it. This is our home. It is not the city's home. It is not the Heritage Society's home. It is not the citizens' home. We bought it. We pay taxes on it. No one else does. Despite the years of work certain stakeholders have done, it is not theirs. This home still remains ours, that we want to renovate for our family to enjoy. What happens to this property if this does not go through? Will you buy it? All I know is that we will be saddened to see 178 further decay. This process is expropriation without compensation. Over the past 2 years, we have accomplished a conservation strategy that protects this home and allows a family of 6 to live in it in today's modern living conditions. In order to preserve this home, it needs to be lived in, or it will continue to deteriorate. We have preserved 99% of 178 CSA key elements of both the building and landscape through historical studies and architectural design, as Mira will soon demonstrate. This was under the guidance and direction of the LHC and the PAC. This process has come to great expense to our family, both emotionally and financially. We have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars and countless hours to adhere to the rules and guidelines applied to this process up to this point. We have been subject to emotional stress that we would never have experienced had we known of the new heritage immovable classification. We will respect the bylaw that was legally brought upon us and protect key elements while also making this house safe with up-to-date modern living items such as a kitchen, adequate bathrooms, proper air, proper heat, proper electricity, proper ventilation, with a house with living space for our family. We have remained private throughout this process, and during this time, no one has commended us or our team for the accomplishments that we have done. In fact, since we have bought 178 CSA, we have been lied to, suffered verbal abuse, invasion of our privacy and property, trespassers, theft, attempted break-ins, intimidation, personal travel information divulged to fellow citizens that could have put us and this property at risk. There is an enormous amount of disinformation and misinformation, but specifically disinformation directed to us in a mean-spirited way. The community should be better than this. Now, Mira will demonstrate that we have diligently followed the guidelines. and recommendations of the original reports and the recommendations of the LHC and PAC throughout this process, we did not arrive here overnight. This process took 2 years. When you make your comments or ask your questions, we hope that you might consider another perspective altogether. There are a lot of positives. The spirit of the bylaw is in fact met. The major stakeholders in this property are all winners. 178 will be protected and preserved with the outcome that this new bylaw classification intended to achieve. We are all winners here. The house will survive and flourish for many years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sibthorpe. Now I think we'll have Arshtem present the file.
Hi, I'm Mira Katnick from Arshtem Architects. I just need to get things hooked up here.
I think you might need to lower your mic a little closer to you.
I'm not as tall as well. I have to sign in. Okay, I will now. Be sharing my screen. Oops, it's not on the proper slide.
I'm assuming that's coming up on the screen there for the
It
audience
is,
to
yes.
see.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Hi. Hello, I'm Mira Katnick, as I've mentioned, from Arshtem Architects. I will be presenting to you the existing house, the process, and the replacement program for much greater detail. So the house at 178 Côte-Saint-Antoine was built, as mentioned, in 1840. It was part of the original 4 houses forming Metcalfe Terrace, as you can see in this map from 1866. It is one of the 2 houses left of this group of houses, as you can see in the streetscape, the house being here and the neighbor being the Wordleworth house. And this is the other side of the street. As mentioned, we started working on the project with Rob and Leslie in June 2020 and worked very closely with the city and working diligently to get to where we are today. It all started, well, not it all started, but the city mandated 2 études on the property. So the étude patrimoniale from Luce Lafontaine Architects with Christina Cameron. And this document outlined the character defining elements of the house from the interior and the exterior. And the Analyse patrimoniale volet paysage that was written by Ron Williams of WAA. This is a heritage study with the character defining elements of the landscape. We have been working closely with Pierre Barriot and Geneviève Richard from Gris-Orange Consultants. They are historians and consultants for the patrimoine that we are working with. They've worked with Parks Canada, Commission Scolaire de Montréal, Ministère de la Culture, and many municipalities and arrondissements, and I believe Westmont as well. Gris-Orange Consultant developed the conservation strategy to inform the design choices and approaches to mitigate impacts of our architectural interventions. Gris-Orange Consultant was also mandated by the client to prepare a study overviewing additions onto historic buildings, citing criteria from the chapters 11 and 12 of the standards and guidelines for the conservation of historic places in Canada's by Parks Canada. And this document was used to help aid in the design development for the addition in the rear. So everything was based on these reports, and I'm not going to go into the details of the reports, but I wanted to highlight that the decisions made were with constant reference to these reports and the conservation approaches of minimizing impact and where impact is planned, ensuring that well-considered actions were taken to mitigate the impact, such as replacing in kind or ensuring reversibility of the impact. So for an example, meaning that you could always put back to the original state. As an overview of the existing condition of the property, I would like to quickly situate you. So this is the principal house, the shed and greenhouse at the back with a stair to a gallery. There's 2 sheds on the site, one makeshift shed using the wood taken from the earlier shed accessory building that was on site, and a sort of metal shed. And then this is the driveway. This is Côte-Saint-Antoine up here. This is the driveway. And then this is the garden in the rear. I wanted to take this chance to walk you through the house. So, with a little video, because I think it's really helpful to see as the owners, or see the house as instead of photos. You can never capture it as much. So we're walking in the front door. This is the main entrance vestibule with the stair to one side. And when turning to the east, this is the living room with the windows towards the Côte-Saint-Antoine and to the garden, front garden. And just to clarify, the woodwork inside, the existing woodwork, radiator cover that we just saw, and woodwork around the windows will be restored and kept as the existing coal burning fireplace. There's a passage that links the living room to the dining room in the rear of the house. And so the dining room in the rear of the house is similar size to the living room, just a little bit broader. That is the rear window that looks out onto the rear garden that we'll talk about in more detail later. This is another coal burning fireplace that's back to back with the other one. This is the dining room window in which we're here today with respect to the demolition request to lower the sill of the window so that we can use that as a passage from the kitchen to the new structure in the rear that is to be forming the kitchen to this main floor. We just sort of turned around to go back towards that service or the auxiliary space area zone of the house, and I think we're going to go towards the rear of the house. This is the butler's pantry and a doorway to the back gallery. This is the staircase, and looking back towards the front door. So upstairs is the staircase with a window to the west, and the balustrade, which is very low, which is part of the changes I'll get into later. This is the smaller room on the west facing the street, which will be turned into a washroom, a bathroom. And this is the front bedroom. And again, all the windows are to be restored. There's not, the wood floors are to be restored. I'll get into that later, but just to give you a sense of the space. This is the other bedroom to the back that faces towards the view. We're not looking at the ceilings, but I just wanted to mention that it's not that there's any cornice or any decorative plasterwork on the upper level. It's a very it's muted detailing with this as compared to the main entrance level. This is the smaller bedroom to the rear, smaller bathroom, sorry, to the rear, that will also be renovated to be, following modern requirements for plumbing. This is in the basement. We will be removing the old furnace. This was what was being used as a kitchen. And this is showing the state of repair of the basement area and the walls that are all in dire need of repair. The walls above grade are fine, it's the walls below the ground that require attention to ensure that they don't continue deterioration. It's existing wood burning stove that actually is planned to be brought to the to be reused in the pool house. And this is again just showing the state of the masonry walls below ground, and so there is a serious issue with water infiltration. So as part of the program, we will be ensuring that the walls are properly not finding the word, but will waterproof. Thank you. And proper water drainage to with French drains as appropriate as per any modern construction, but totally in with consideration of the old stone walls.
Just to clarify, that's mold or that's paint coloring?
A little bit of both.
A little bit of both. Yeah. Thanks. Thank you.
And then that's another, so there will be, as pointed out, it will be more bedrooms in this house in the basement level, as there's they're a family and hoping to have found a place for their to have a future, homestead as for long term. So this these spaces where there are windows will be converted to make sure that they have bedrooms. I think we're going to go outside next. Yeah, so this is the outside, and it's to be noted that the landscape has also been cited, and I don't know why it's choppy. I'm moving nice and smooth, and you guys are really choppy. So maybe I think so. I'm going to pause it for a little bit and maybe zoom again. I don't know. The Zoom connection is not working very well. So this is walking from the existing driveway, which is going to be maintained as a driveway. And this is the access to the front vestibule. And you can see the condition of that vestibule, that it requires, it's beyond repair. And we'll get into that later as well. But it will be restored in kind, just as our firm was mandated to do the same to the Wordleworth House neighboring at the time that was restored. We were working on that. We didn't do the addition, but we did the restoration aspects of the adjacent house. This is the rear just showing you the relationship of the house to the landscape. And as you can see that the basement level becomes completely at grade with the landscape due to the sloping of the site. And I apologize again for the choppiness of the video. And so what you're seeing as a basement actually becomes the threshold between the house and the garden at the back, completely at grade. So no rock excavation or anything planned there. And the existing greenhouse actually protrudes from the stone wall. So something we are not recreating. So right now you could see the green side of the greenhouse from the street. Well, it's just that the existing greenhouse was protruding from the existing stone wall, a condition we are not recreating. So if I may go back to the presentation. I'm just going to go to full screen. There we go. Did that work? Yeah. So as I touched on in the video, the landscape is also a cited aspect to this property. And as per the report prepared by Ron Williams of WAA, as you can see on the left, there are 5 zones of the property that are very important that they are maintained moving forward. You have the cour d'entrée, so the entrance court, the cour zone véhiculaire, and the service area to the west. And the entrance court sort of spills over to the east. And then the cour véhiculaire to the west. You have the zone transition, which is the transition zone between the house and the more formal part of the garden, which is considered the pelouse. And so the grassy area is that formal sort of, now I wouldn't use the word formal, but is the sort of the main focus of the rear garden. And what is called the potager, which is the vegetable garden zone. So moving forward, it was very important that this area, the pelouse be maintained, that all the zones be to transfer into to moving forward be maintained in their integrity. So the front court will remain. The service area is where that is housed the garage and driveway. The transition zone is that zone that goes between the house and the garden, and that is where the proposed addition is being placed. And the pelouse is being restored. And the potager area is where there will be a swimming pool with another auxiliary building of a pool house, as well as gardens for vegetable gardens. This, I guess, it sort of shows it in more color, so you could understand the different zones. So the architectural components are that I will be reviewing in more detail are the principal house, which includes the restoration and renovation. The addition to the main house at the location of the existing gallery, shed, and greenhouse. And there's the construction of the 2 auxiliary buildings. So as I mentioned, the pool house at the rear and the garage, the 1-car garage. The 2 auxiliary buildings are designed to be simple in both shape and form, as well as in detailing. They're consistent with the main house, which is not ornamental. Sorry, I'm not going to the next slide. They're not ornamental. Sorry, this is not going to the next slide. Is there a glitch? There we go. It's consistent with the main house, which is not ornamental. It's simple, almost in a contemporary way. They recall the simple gabled roof volumetry of the original auxiliary building that was present on the property, the one to the left. The one to the right is what's there right now, which was actually pieces of that original auxiliary building. And you can see the auxiliary building behind is this metal shed. They recall the simple gable roofed volumetry of the original building that was on the property, using naturally aged vertical and wood cladding and matching doors. And the garage with its sober palette and smaller dimensions is clearly subsidiary to the main house. The main house, so both the pool house and the garage are in that vocabulary. The main house project consists of an addition, which we'll talk about later, and interior and exterior restoration renovation. On the exterior, each character defining element of the house, which is visible to the street, is to be restored. Or if in a poor state of repair, such as the vestibule, are to be rebuilt as per the existing. The masonry walls, any work on the existing stone, these are the existing drawings, any work on the existing stone walls are to be done to ensure the longevity of these walls. The masonry has been inspected by a mason and is deemed to be in very good condition, except as the foundation part below grade, which we already saw from the inside. But actually above grade, they don't need to be like repointed completely. We're just going to do repairs as required in certain areas as we deem necessary. And they will be done with mortar, lime-based mortar, similar to the original mortar. So any repairs around woodwork or things that cracks that we see are visible will be restored. And there's a band at the bottom of the masonry, at the band here, at the bottom of the house, at the front only, which is becoming delaminated, that can be repaired and will be repaired in place without its removal. As mentioned, this is the door that we originally were planning to open up, have a passageway in this door. It was decided to not do that, to not go ahead with that in order to reduce by half from 0.9% to 0.5% the amount of demolition that we're asking for. The woodwork of the house, another character defining element, is to be restored wherever possible. Specifically in this case, for example, those corner boards at the front of the house were reviewed and inspected and considered to be restorable, and they do not need to be removed. They will be restored on site. On the contrary, the vestibule entrance portico is unfortunately beyond repair. It's not Rob who's leaning, it's the portico that's leaning. The supporting concrete slab is inadequate and broken beyond repair. It was just a slab, had no footings dealing with our frost issues. Rotten wood pieces were removed and spliced, and pieces were brought in, and leaving it impossible to repair and compromising the structural integrity of the vestibule. And the doors have been undercut and badly aged. Bachon & Fists Incorporated is a specialist in custom wood window restoration, came on site and inspected the structure and has been engaged to create a new portico to match the existing. They will follow strict protocol procedures to ensure quality control to create an exact replica of the existing construction. Measured drawings of the existing will be taken, photographic inventory, full shop drawings will be, and assembly details will be received and reviewed and approved prior to the careful dismantling of the portico brought to their shop so that they can recreate profiles with using the existing pieces. And as many pieces that can be reused will be reused, specifically, and I'll just go back, the side glass windows. It was determined together that there is a way that they could create a new thermal using the existing wood windows, but adding a piece of glass on the inside to create a new properly sealed thermal with the original pieces. So that will be undertaken. The windows, another character defining element, are to be restored. while at the same time transformed to make sure that the client can operate all windows to allow fresh air into their house. As right now, the windows are sealed with fixed exterior storm windows, which don't open. Again, we work closely with Bachand and Fils to develop a strategy to restore the existing in-swing French style windows. We will restore the existing French style interior windows. So those will be completely restored with the existing pieces, and to ensure functionality and safety. The new storm windows will be replaced with new French style outswing windows, and making sure that we can keep the frieze that is existing around the window. So the wood elements that are embedded in the stone will remain on site and be restored on site. And the metalwork filigree that's there can definitely be restored. There's no issue there. But the interior piece that's there, we've been working with Bachand to devise a detail that works so that they can outswing without altering the pieces that remain in place. And between the two swinging windows, we will incorporate a recessed insect screen so that it could be brought across, so that they could open the window and put an insect screen and then take it away when they want to close the windows. The roof is in good condition and therefore not planned to be modified at this point. The soffits were repaired in kind with matching wood to match existing, and a minimal ventilation strip will be inserted to ensure ventilation of the roof, as the interior will be insulated, and all work will happen from the interior to ensure better sealed roof. Within the house, any changes made to the interior are to be kept to a minimum, and where necessary, made livable, and to be kept to a minimum only, and where necessary, to make the house livable and safe. Working with the bylaw 1558 that was passed, there's 6 elements that are specifically being highlighted in the bylaw, and I will go over our approach to each of them. But first, just to discuss the, this is the existing plan. These are the existing plans, and these are the proposed plans. The overall spatial organization is definitely been addressed and it will be maintained. So if you see on the main floor, the large living spaces are to the east, and the smaller auxiliary spaces to the west. And the new addition, which is basically the same size as the other spaces. Again, on the to the east, it's the space in which one lives, and to the west is the staircase to the basement. As we are removing the staircase inside the house to the basement, as it was very narrow and steep. So to have a staircase to connect the 2 floors, we're putting that into the new addition. And I don't know if we want to go through the house in more detail, but I think that's fine. So the main stair is a kind of character defining element outlined in bylaw 1580. And in this, it's very important that the safety of the stair was a forefront consideration for the client. The handrail and guardrail at the 2nd floor is too low. The tread dimension is too small, and it is necessary to reconfigure the stair to make it safe. It's below and the norms of today, and moving forward in a house, it's not an element that should be compromised on, as it's a source of very serious. It could be a source of serious injury. But just to say, it's been carefully considered what elements were to be kept on site, what elements are to be removed, and when removed, any new elements placed will be done in such a way to ensure that they follow the same materiality, the same detailing, the same proportions where they can be, although the handrail will be made taller. The newel post will be moved forward to connect to the first step as per the existing, to ensure that that same relationship and is the integrity is kept. In doing so, I guess I could just get in saying that the plaster work is going to all be restored, and basically the plaster work is only on the rez-de-chaussée, the entrance level. And in doing the stair modification, we will be reviewing the moving of the corbel, but again, to ensure that the entrance vestibule maintains the integrity of an entrance vestibule. The existing woodwork is all to be restored, and all pieces, if damaged, replaced in kind, or if they've been damaged over the years, or in the case of where we are creating some new doorways, we are going to put any or passageways between rooms. All the new casing around the doorways are to match the existing. The doors themselves are to match the existing. The casings that are the baseboards that are removed in those doorways are going to be removed and stored on site for any future use or reused in other locations if required due to some other damage. So the woodwork will be preserved, and any doors that are removed are going to be replaced on the house. Like for example, in the basement, there's new doorways, so we're going to be reusing doors down there. On the upper level, there's some doorways that are not going to be used as their bathrooms. We're going to keep those doors in place and just build walls so that the stairway hall looks the same. Plumbing, and this is not reading very well, I apologize. This is a plumbing drawing. Plumbing will be installed in such a way, planned and installed in such a way to ensure that the minimum impact to casings in the main level. There are two washrooms. The toilet has been positioned so it's directly above this partition below. The sink, all the plumbing can pass in this direction as the structure has been investigated. We know that the joists or the structural joists are going in that direction, so the plumbing can go in between the joists and thread through that wall in the living level. Each bathroom, as there's one in the front and there's one in the rear, will be done in such a way that each one will have their vertical stack. So the same thing about this toilet, by the way, it lines up with the partition below, and there won't be any like trying to connect this side to that side. Each one will have their own vertical stacks so that to minimize any impact on the woodwork or plasterwork. As I meant, this was actually my explanation about the doors. These doors, this is the hallway in the second floor that is going to be, the doors are going to remain in place, even though they're bathrooms, to ensure that that's there. And the other character defining, or one of the 6 elements that was highlighted in 1558 bylaw was the fireplace. It's a coal burning fireplace as present, and we are very, we had it inspected and investigated, and it was looked from above. The flue was analyzed, and we are very fortunate because there is a product that is available where we could get a CSA sealed gas unit that can simply be inserted into the existing fireplace, and it won't. So if I go back to this picture, I'm supposed to go back. This piece that goes around this arch piece will have to be removed, and it's an insert right now. That's the way it's built. So that piece can be removed, and the new insert and chamber, burning chamber, inserted exactly in that space, and it's basically the same shape. And it's actually something that's been put on the market for exactly these coal burning fireplaces as a replacement. So all the woodwork, the stonework, the hearth, all of these elements are completely able to stay on site and not be removed in any way. And they will be restored. This piece that's in the front can actually be also reused. It'll stay on site as well. It can be incorporated into the fireplace. Again, with the approach of the historical reports to whenever we remove pieces, we want to keep those pieces on site, and we'll be keeping those pieces on site so that they are part of the house. The wood floors are softwood floors, large planks. They are also mentioned in the bylaw 1558. We had the floor person who will be refurbishing the floor inspected them, and we were very happy to hear that he felt that they can be restored. We are removing the floors on the basement level, and the floorboards in the basement level are actually of the same material. So we will be able to salvage all those boards from the basement, and we will be installing them in certain places. So some places are like too many cuts in the wood, or there's damaged wood pieces that would not be able to be sanded down. But with moving those boards from above, we can get all the floors to be as per the existing. They were basically all screwed from below, and we will be making sure that they don't squeak. If necessary, we can recreate the forged square head nails, which they do have in some places, but not that many places. But we can, if necessary, although I don't think we will need them, we can use those in certain locations. And the last item on those 6 elements that are cited is the radiator covers. So there are 3 in the house. There's one in the entrance vestibule, and there's one in the living room, one of the living room windows, and there's one in the dining room window. The one in the, and so the 2 in the entrance vestibule and the living room are to remain in place and be restored, and actually to be incorporated into the heating system of the house. The one in the dining room window is to be removed and relocated into the greenhouse, into this greenhouse design. So we are going to be reusing that in a similar situation as in front of a window. So it's actually being reused in kind in different location. So as I mentioned, that we worked with the historian, the historical report that was put together to look at rear additions and to look at certain elements that in studying rear additions to historical buildings that make them successful and respectful to the historical building to which they are added. So some examples, and I'm just going to try to find my place in my notes. So when we can look at these examples, you can see certain things that make them successful, which became our guiding principles. Additions are light. You could see through them and see the original wall. This interface between the 2 structures is delicate. The palette of colors is sober. The materials don't compete with one another. The massing, like the light metal, glass, steel versus the, of its period, stone masonry walls. The massing is both smaller in both width and in height. Based on these principles and based on the recommendations of Ron Williams of the WAA. So Ron Williams of WAA also was involved in the preliminary discussions with respect to the addition to the main house, how it sits in the landscape, how it relates to the house, how the volumetry, the vocabulary, his recommendations. So he the idea of the greenhouse as a second story, as an approach as opposed to the gallery, but a greenhouse, which is the light and airy approach. Again, because of the transition zone being the specific zone in which it was recommended to do the addition, it was limited to being in that zone only, so it couldn't be separated by a bridge or things like that. So, and also the protrusion of the second story over the first story as a gesture to put yourself even more into the garden, to relate to the garden, to create that transition even more positively. In order to achieve the addition related to the main house, there are certain technical issues. The rear adjunct structures are to be demolished. The shed, the greenhouse, stair, and gallery. The existing openings are to become the linking elements between the existing house and the addition. So the windows and the doors are to be removed and stored on site, and the masonry openings are to be lowered simply. The alterations to the rear of the house are done so as to minimize the impact on the existing components, making that the addition is the most reversible as possible. So this is the existing plans showing those terraces that are being, the terrace, this shed, and the greenhouse. And this is the sections, technical drawings through the existing window. So this is the existing dining room window, which consists of the archway, the side panels in wood, and the window itself, and the radiator cover. And then we would be removing the window, keeping it on site. The archway will become the element to which you pass through to get to the rear addition. And the radiator cover will be reincorporated into the new window of the kitchen. The floor, as I mentioned, can be repaired. Just in case that we don't know the condition of the floor behind the radiator cover, and a new step down to the addition. Similarly, in the basement, so that would be the same thing for the rear door. There's not much there, it's just a little sill. And in the basement, the floor is being lowered slightly to the crawl space level, and there will be a threshold, but it's all within the same masonry dimension. So to explain in more detail, the arch around this window is, as we were saying, it's the principal element that you see. This is the element to which you pass to get from the dining room to the new kitchen. It was felt that it is the most respectful to the concept of this archway to create a passage that is complete through the entire opening. This means that we will remove the whole window and the radiator cover, bringing the side panels. They might be there behind the radiator cover, we don't know, but we will recreate a panel here that will match the existing, so that the archway is the element that you pass through. On the outside, we have the window. Again, it has this wooden piece that's within the stone. We would keep the wooden piece, and it's really just this little bit of masonry at the bottom that is part of the demolition. This is the technical drawings for the addition and cutting through the addition. So we will be keeping the masonry behind. This is the east elevation. So the concept is to have, I guess I should go back. The base is the wood, and it recalls the painted wood of the sheds with the greenhouse as the gallery above, the approach is definitely to not try to create a structure that is trying to be of 1840. It's as per the recommendations and guidelines by the historian and through research and all of that, it was really felt that we have to be of its period. And the entire greenhouse is following those principles as we outlined, with the addition setback on the sides. So it's set back from the main walls on the two sides. The gabled roof slips underneath the second story windows. The base recalls the existing shed with the vertical painted wood planks. The light greenhouse structure with its oriel window protecting the doors below. This oriel window helps break down the mass of the addition as well as provide cover for the doorway below. It also provides a transition zone into the garden. And this is the revised west elevation, where we have the approach of this doorway into as a service door on the service side of the house, going into the addition and not into the stone wall as was previously.
Which is what residents would have seen online. So that's the significant change.
And this shows how the approach would be, because this doorway is under the gabled end of the roof. We wanted to make sure that there is a projection to protect the head from the rooftop above, and everything in the addition is. Oh, and sorry, before I get there. So the greenhouse, the way that the greenhouse attaches and the house attaches to the main wall is through the jointing of the stone. So no stone pieces are going to be saw cut or anything like that. We're going to be putting all the flashing into the joints of the at the roof, and on the walls vertically, we will create a detail that can be sealed and repaired in the future. So no saw cuts into the stone. This is the rendering showing that, again, as per it's a structure that is of its period. It is built now, it's not, and it's reacting to the building to which it is attached. It is light. It is highlighting the existing stone walls, giving them the importance, the attachment, the transparency, the fact that we could see the stone wall beyond, inside and outside. The palette is muted, it's toned down, and all the elements within the addition are coherent with one another. No, like all the windows are of the same style. There's no like trying to recreate an old style within the new style. Everything within the addition is distinct and from the existing building, giving the existing building even more of the seriousness and attention that it requires. So that's the last slide.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the very detailed presentation. I think it was very important to go through all the different steps, because it really is just, it's not just about one entranceway on this house. So it's the entire project. So thank you for sharing those details. I think the applicant would also like to. Are you going to turn that off? Oh, are you? Would you like any further comments? Okay, thank you. So now we go to section. We received 20 letters. The city clerk's office received 20 letters of comments or oppositions for the demolition application within the prescribed time period. So at this point, if anyone would like to make a comment, you are welcome to do so. Is there anyone? If you do so, you have to come forward to the mic and state your name and your address. You do have a comment. Does anyone who had submitted commentary want to? No? You were so detailed, Mira, that it's out. Mrs. Rosenberg, why don't you come up and your name and your address? I think it's on. I see the light on.
Am I on? Yes.
You're on.
Okay. First, I want to say, I really like Leslie and Rob. This is not personal. This is actually has to do with the city. 2.5 years ago, a swimming pool was built on Springfield. This is very relevant. And in order to access the,
So this has to be pertaining to the demolition now.
it's coming.
Okay,
In
I will
order-
make sure that it is, or we'll move on, because it is, I'm sure we don't want to be here for too long.
Just hear
Okay,
me through. It's very brief. In order to build that swimming pool and dig it out and pour the concrete, etc., they needed access. The access came from the generosity of Leslie and Rob. Now, there were 4 plants. I know this sounds trite, but it wasn't at the time. There were 4 plants that needed protecting because the exterior and the landscape needed protection and the land was part of the protection. So in order to protect those plants, they created this dogleg to go onto my property. But it could have been avoided because
I'm still not seeing how
I'm
this is
getting there.
connected to the
I'm
demolition.
talking about that land itself, not the house.
Okay, so, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about that they're applying for a demolition permit, and that's what the questions have to be about tonight.
No, this is just has to do with the land and.
Okay, so, but that's not what we're allowing questions for
15
tonight.
and 52, and
Yeah, and I'll happily address those with you at another time, but we have to stick to the demolition. tonight.
Okay.
So, and I understand the whole file. I've been briefed on it. I know the situation, and it was 4 plants that had meant to be
yes,
protected.
and the plants mysteriously disappeared after all that hassle.
Yes, which is unfortunate. So, but thank you for your commentary, and we'll move on to if there is anyone else who has a question or a comment pertaining to the demolition. And I am going to be strict about this because we have a lot of people in the room and we have to follow the rules.
Caroline Breslaw, 447 Grosvenor, and speaking as a private citizen, although I am a board member of the Westmount Historical Association.
I would also point out that you're a member of the CLP, so you've had
Yes.
access to this file.
No, I will broach nothing that has not been presented this evening or that I know because I visited the house for 20 years when Larry Good was the owner. So
Okay,
Um,
well,
first question is, how many online viewers do we have?
we have, well, it says 17. Several of them are, a few of them are city employees. And of course,
Yeah.
we have our dutiful journalist, Lorene, and some citizens, but we have probably, I don't know how many city employees in here. Attendees are 17.
Okay,
That
good.
includes employees.
I'd like to point out that it is bylaw 1580, 80, I think I've got it right. The second bylaw, the first was 1522, just to correct that. I guess my first question is, I feel for the Sibthorpes if they bought the property under a false understanding, and I'm very curious why they did not sue the vendor, which to me would have been the
So
logical step.
again, I'm
It
going to ask
doesn't
you
have-
to
okay.
pertain, it has to pertain to the
Okay.
demolition.
We've looked at the category 1-star classification. Under that, the exterior of a house, a building is protected. So we have several things here. I'm very happy to see the modification for the first time this evening in basement door. Kudos. But we still have the dining room window, which is considered part of the facade. And that is named as one of the 6 elements to be conserved.
Yep. which is
Conserving a
a-
window by simply moving it somewhere else is not the same as conserving it, especially when that window is, and I know the house very well, is just above a radiator with the cast iron surround and the marble cover, which is named in the character elements that must be
Okay, so your
preserved.
concern is about the demolition, so your sole concern is about the demolition pertaining to, I mean, I would
Not
call it a
myself.
demolition, but
The dining room window,
Dining room
which
window.
is a category 1-star element.
I
Secondly,
would also note that this is the route for a 1-star. It's not fair to say that 1-star has never been touched in the city. I
No,
think we all know
but
that.
there
there's
are
been several.
45 1-star houses in Westmount. And if we allow this for a category 1-star that has been given above that, the equivalent of a provincial classification, because that's what the Westmount Heritage Council has recommended, what council
Well, council adopted.
adopted, yes, thank you. It's the domino effect. My category 1 house could be the next to go. Anybody here who has a heritage home, that sets a precedent. Second thing is, in the interior elements, the staircase has been there since 1840. I don't know about other people in this room,
So
but
I'd say that the staircase is not part of the demolition right now because we're talking about the exterior demolition. So that's,
only the exterior.
yes.
Okay,
So we will.
then I will
move on
leave it
from
for
that.
another time.
So your comments are noted
Right.
in that you are not in favor of the demolition
Of the
lowering the window to the floor.
Yes,
So thank you for
You're very
your
welcome.
comments. Any other further comments from the room? I'd ask you to come up and state your name. Yes, he did.
This is
Good
the
evening, Mr.
Reslaw family.
Reslaw.
Hi, Christine. This is very short. If I understood correctly, PAC went and recommended that the architectural plans be not approved. Is that correct?
We're discussing the demolition plan.
I'm
tonight.
sorry, I just have to establish 2 points. The PAC recommended that it not be approved. Is that correct?
Madame Jodoin, do you want to address this? And that it is, this is a complicated file and that there's many elements. So
Yeah,
if
I'm
you
just
are not
asking
in
a very simple question.
So I think that simple question
Can she answer?
warrants some clarification for the rest of the audience. Madame Jodoin?
Yes, there are 3 bylaws that this full project is subject to. The first that for which we are gathered here is the demolition bylaw,
Yes,
which is 1317.
yes.
Then there are 2 other bylaws which pertain to the project per se, not the demolition. And those are the PIA or the SPAPE, which is the SPAPE. Okay, no, I just want to explain it. It's about
Yeah.
architectural integration. And the other one is the recognition, the heritage recognition, which is bylaw 1552, which was amended by 1580. Does that provide you the answer you're looking for?
I think the answer was that PAC did not favor the recommendation. So the second question then follows immediately from that is, I assume that the local heritage council that preceded that had a similar recommendation, is that correct?
With regards to each part of the project, there's a different body that makes a recommendation to municipal council. In the case of the demolition, the recommendation came from PAC. With regards to other bylaws, the local heritage council was involved.
And can you share the recommendation of that?
The recommendation has not yet been submitted and adopted by council.
Sorry, the recommendation from the LHC, whether it's submitted or not to council, what was it?
This information becomes public once it's been submitted to council.
All right, I'm an economist and we're used to not receiving information per se. It's inconceivable that they didn't recommend to not allow the project. let me go then to the last component. You are planning after this to go and consider the matter as a body. No, you're not. Article 139 of the Cultural Heritage Act, P9002, states that, and je parle en français pour ça, avant d'imposer des conditions, le conseil de la municipalité qui a adopté le règlement de citation, that's you, prendre l'avis du conseil local du patrimoine. You don't have the power to go and make a recommendation that differs from the LHC.
Yes, we do.
Prendre l'avis takes the advice, not listens to the advice, not asks for the advice. Prendre l'avis takes the advice. And frankly, that's what should happen. Anything else is ultra vires, is outside the law. And
Thanks for your
I
commentary.
will finish by stating that I fully understand, and I think we've written about this together, I fully understand the difficulty you have in this situation. You have Robert on this side, who is clearly enthused about this project, clearly has the means to do the project, and probably do it better than a lot of other people would be able. He was misled in terms of the deed of sale. I looked at the deed of sale, it's public.
Again, Mr. Bressel, this
I
has
will
to pertain
finish.
to
I will finish.
demolition.
And the statement, there is no conservation order on the house, was misleading. The seller knew
Okay,
perfectly well there
so
was.
Mr.
I
Bressel,
understand
I am the chair of
fully.
now, I'm the chair of this meeting and you are not pertaining to the demolition right now. So
I
and
am,
you've had a
okay,
chance to ask
so
your
I will
question.
finish off with the statement that you as council have to abide by the Cultural Heritage Act, and you have to take the advice of the LHC. Thank you.
So just to clarify for the rest of the room, the Planning Advisory Committee is just that, advisory, council votes. And you're welcome to take that up with our city clerk or any other legal body. I can assure you that the PAC is advisory and council votes. Thank you. Next question.
It's a comment. I'm just going to read off this. a little
Sure.
bit.
If it pertains to the demolition.
Yes, in support. So first of all, my name is Dr. Chelsea Madler. I am a co-owner with my husband of 168 Chemin de la Côte-Saint-Antoine, the adjacent house. So firstly, I want to acknowledge that both my home at 168 and the home at 178 are situated on the traditional territory of the Kaninkehe-Kaha, which are the Mohawk, a place which has long served as a site of meeting exchange amongst nations. And I want to recognize and respect them as the traditional custodians of the land and water in which we meet today. So we've had the great fortune of getting to know Leslie and Robert over the last several months since we made our own move into 168, which is the adjacent property. And my husband and I want to voice our support for the proposed alterations to 178. Many of the concerns that are raised by the members here today are really rooted in the mentality to preserve one single snapshot of history at any expense. And as we have all learned over the last 2 years, adaptations to new realities is integral to the preservation of our communities. And we share the fundamental values at heart of their vision to preserve the heritage while adapting a house into a family home for 21st century living, so that this historic property does not decay further as it has done for so many decades in the past. Westmount is a living, breathing neighborhood at the heart of Montreal where functional contemporary housing for families must be prioritized. The external changes proposed are modest, intensively researched, embedded, and within a scope that seems to be followed very, very closely to the plans that were done in conjunction with several consulting bodies. It's time to allow this generation of Westmounters to care for it and respect this property in the way that it deserves. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your commentary. Next. Yep.
My name is Richard Dufour. I'm a resident of Westmount. It's important to know, or as a preface, that I don't know the owners. I'm not related to the process in terms of their contractors or architect. I'm just simply a citizen who's been watching this unfold, and I take very personal interest as a citizen and as also as somebody who kind of went through this very similar process when I did build actually a house on Lansdowne about 10 years ago. So I want to make sure that there's a distinction is drawn between the appropriateness of what I say personal and public intervention when it comes to ownership of
And I'll remind
private
you to
property.
stick to the demolition aspect of it.
Okay, but I need a bit of an introduction.
Okay, you can give an
May-
intro. and then-
May I?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So Westmount has a rigorous system in place when it comes to the granting of renovation and construction permits. And I think we have to have faith in our elected officials and the professionals they appoint to oversee this process. The PAC exists to carefully review all requests for renovation and construction permits, and we must trust their professional expertise and training. Second guessing or doubting their decision-making process, often for very subjective or personal reasons, will prevent our built architectural landscape in Westmount from evolving. I agree that the good house needs to be preserved, but this does not prevent well-executed modifications to take place. From what I've understood, the front facade is being very carefully restored. Minor alterations on the side are proposed, and it seems to be the rear facade is where we have the main objections. The proposed rear extension, which appropriately, in my opinion, is of contemporary nature, is appropriate. We're building in the year 2022, not 1840. So today's aesthetics, technology, and building materials should be represented. Simply mimicking the past may be safe and comforting for some, but it does not necessarily contribute to the advancement of architecture. Posted online were some of the objections voiced by various citizens that I read recently. Although many are very thoughtful, insightful, and useful, others had me perplexed. And if I may, I'd like to just point out a few of the comments that I took note of that I think we need to question. Again, I'm quoting some of the anonymous letters, just little bits here. One of them, the new owner should be able to do whatever they wish to the interior, but a major two-story addition is out of the question legally and personally. Another one, the addition, as you can see from the architect's drawings, is inappropriate in style. Another one, it's distressing how anyone with the means to buy such a unique historical building also presumes the right to slap on trendy additions. The proposed construction of a two-story addition at the rear of the existing building in an architectural style discordant must be prevented.
So
And again,
I think we've all read the commentary, and I'm sure you council shared some of
Okay,
being
all right.
uncomfortable with some of the tone of that
all right.
commentary. So-
And then there were, I'll just mention that there are also a few more that talk about their personal objections because of their jackhammering, about their foundations. Finally, I was alerted by a neighbor that this demolition may impact our foundations, therefore I oppose it. I believe some of these comments are erroneous in fact. They should not be considered by the Demolition Committee in debating the rights of individuals to manage their own property, providing proper guidelines and renovation procedures are respected. While I promote the need for conservation and respect for the built environment, we need to moderate the level of public discourse when it comes to personal property. We have bylaws in place and professionals with backgrounds in architecture, historic preservation, and urban planning who we should entrust. Individual homeowners should not be held hostage to the personal interests of others in the community. To conclude, engaging in a discussion is healthy and essential in our democracy, but caving into the whims of individuals who have self-serving interests is not fair to those individuals who are respectful of the bylaws and those who oversee the permit granting process.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Dufour, for your statement, your comments. And I think just to point out that, yes, council shared being very uncomfortable with some of the tone of some of those comments, especially, I won't highlight which ones they were, but it was not a place to take personal swipes at the current owner. And, you know, we're elected to public office. We're used to this. I get swipes to me, you know, every week in the Independent and wherever it may be, but we've chosen to do that. We've chosen to run for public office. These are owners of a private residence. They are not leading a public life, but they are making, they have a house with this designation and they are making a minor change to it. So that's why or they're asking for less than 1% demolition, and that is why that there is this public element. But in terms of the PEA process in Westmount, you don't have, you don't design your neighbor's house, essentially, is what it comes down to. So thank you for your commentary on that. Are there any further questions or comments before we leave to deliberate? Sure, as long as it pertains to the demolition.
Yeah, it's with regard to demolition. It's not a personal opinion. My name is John Joba. I live at 4656 Sherbrooke Street West, Department 4. I was actually impressed by the presentation as a whole, but I would ask the question, would it not be possible to go forward with most of the work without, for example, opening up that window? In other words, making concession there to that space, because I can understand the point of view of a person. I mean, I was very, very surprised that this process got to this stage, honestly. And I was wondering, why am I even here? In the sense that, there was so much work done to try to preserve this property. There was so much discussion about preserving elements of the property, whether landscape, interior, exterior, etc. So in any case, my question is only to say, is it possible to consider what seems to me, again, the owner of the house seems to have done a great job. The architect has looked thoroughly into it, but is it possible to consider, modifications at this point still? In other words, simply saying, well, can we go ahead, put that addition on, but let's say preserve the dining room as it is, that window as it is, or maybe, and just to have one entrance into the space.
So this is what they have applied for. This is what they've asked for. This is part of their design.
I realize that.
So we're
I realize that.
responding to their
I realize that.
to their design.
You're going to have to say yes or no.
Yeah.
But you can also say no, but if you do this, we'll say yes. That's all I'm saying. In other words, you can, everything can be still discussed. I think it's a great plan.
So this is one step in the process in terms of looking at the demolition permit.
I also, again, I don't really understand there was a discussion of the interior staircase. Apparently that's not up for discussion today, although it seems to me that there is some demolition involved there if it's going to be replaced, but that's interior demolition. So I don't really understand that either. I also was in agreement. I've been in many, many homes that, well, not many, but I've been in a few homes that, are from the 18th century, 19th century, and I've seen old staircases, and, I know families have survived them, and they weren't terrible dangers. So I just, again,
Your point is noted.
my point is that, you're the ones who went to all this trouble for a number of years to want to preserve all these elements of the house. So I think they have some, great ideas. I would say 98% of it is fantastic, and let's do it. But maybe there's some point in actually looking at the 2% that you went to a lot of trouble to try to protect, and say, well, okay, maybe we can make some adjustments there. Anyway, that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you for your comments. And is that last chance? No? Okay. back on? Okay. All right. We have now, thank you for your patience while we left to deliberate with council. We now have a council decision to render, so I will ask Councillor Gallery to read the motion, as Councillor Peart is out of the country right now. So, Councillor Gallery.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Please bear with me. There's several whereases that I will go through. Whereas a demolition permit application has been submitted to the City of Westmount for the selective demolition of the existing accessory buildings on the property and the attached outbuildings at the rear of the main building in order to restore and rehabilitate the residence located at 178 Côte-Saint-Antoine Road, also known as the Good House. Whereas on May 17, 2022, a public notice was published as required by law in the City of Westmount's bylaw, and a copy of said notice was posted on the proposed demolition site. Whereas following the publication of the public notice, the city's clerk's office received a total of 20 letters, including 2 letters of comment, 12 letters of objection, and 4 letters of objection having considerations other than the demolition. Whereas the provisions of bylaw 1317 concerning demolition of the City of Westmount have been considered and the application meets the criteria of said bylaw. Whereas demolition herein means and includes tearing down, demolishing, or otherwise destroying all or part of a Class 1-star building, except for the purpose of replacing existing windows, doors, or exterior wall cladding in an identical manner. Whereas the main building is a Class 1-star building and the heritage buildings in this category are among the most remarkable buildings in Westmount. Whereas the demolition application is the result of a proposed restoration and rehabilitation project for a Class 1-star building rather than a complete demolition of a building. Whereas the original building and property have been the object of an architectural heritage study by Luce Lafontaine Architect and landscaper study by WAA. Whereas the original building built in 1844 has been slightly altered and offers exceptional architectural integrity and authenticity. Whereas the proposal was to demolish the accessory buildings and outbuildings attached to the rear of the main building to create a new opening on the side facade of the main building and to lower the sill of 3 existing openings on the rear facade of the building. Whereas the demolition of the accessory buildings is acceptable because they are not identified as having heritage value by the landscape study. Whereas the demolition of the outbuildings attached to the rear of the main building is acceptable because they are located in the transition zone identified as a flexible zone subject to change by the landscape study. Whereas the proposed lowering of the 2 existing doors and window on the rear facade as part of the interior design of the proposed project is acceptable, provided that the masonry is sawn rather than dismantled. Whereas the entrance vestibule is being rehabilitated in keeping with the original design, details, and exterior dimensions. Whereas the Urban Planning Department received from the applicant on Monday, June 13, 2022, a revision to the scope of the demolition, which removes the opening previously planned on the side facade in the original masonry. Whereas the revision reduces the percentage of demolition in the original masonry from 0.9% to less than 0.5%, according to the architect's calculations. Whereas the replacement program, including a restoration, rehabilitation, and addition, will contribute to the sustainability of the original building and its residential function. I move, Madam Mayor, that the above preambule be an integral part of this resolution, that the application for authorization to demolish the property located at 178 Côte-Saint-Antoine Road on lot number 1583306 be approved in accordance with the analysis and information provided in application number 2021-00368 dated March 23rd, 2021, subject to the following conditions. That a replacement program in accordance with bylaw 1305 on site planning and architectural integration programs be approved by the municipal council. 2, that the construction work be started within 12 months of the issuance of the demolition permit. And 3, that the construction permit or certificate of authorization be issued prior to or simultaneously with the issuance of the demolition permit.
Thank you, Councillor Gallery. I think the councillor for the area, the district, would like to second. Councillor Shammy. Any further comments at this point from anyone on council? Before we, or do you want to vote? Let's vote. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Carried unanimously. And Conrad Peart, who is the Commissioner for Urban Planning, is out of the country, but he can't be recorded as voting in favor, but he wanted all those attending to know that he would have voted in favor if he was here. But he's not. But anyways, he just wanted to make sure that that was in the record. So further comments, I think Councillor Roux would like to make a comment.
That'll be. Okay, I truly care about the architectural heritage of our city, so I would like to explain my thought process and my decision. I had the chance to visit 178 Côte-Saint-Antoine and was surprised to see the state that it's in. It's evident that the house has been neglected for a very long time. It is said that politics is the art of the possible. I think it certainly applies in this case. What is proposed, a complete conservation of the property? Not quite, but contemporary life has changed too much since the 19th century. Do I wish the project could have gotten PAC's full endorsement? Of course, it would have been ideal. So I asked myself, what is possible? What are the options? On the one hand, we have owners who have been devoted and patient, who are willing to invest both time and money to do the necessary to truly restore the house, selon les règles de l'art. I'm sorry, I don't know the translation. While yes, making the necessary changes so that it will be possible for family to live in it according to today's standards. On the other hand, if we continue to go back and forth and work doesn't start soon, I'm afraid that before long, the house will pass the point of no return. It would then be very easy to sell such a large piece of land and build a new house. Westmount would have lost something precious. I've been told when I want things to be just right, that perfect is the enemy of good. Here, it may not be absolutely perfect to everyone, but I trust it will be very, very good.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Roux. Councillor Gallery would also like to comment.
Thank you. I would just like to add to those eloquent words that I believe since this was proposed to the former council in 2019, we were aware of it in 2020, there was adopted bylaw change. Over the last 2 years, I do believe the owners have worked 100% in good faith to preserve and protect this heritage home and respect the key elements and the spirit of this house. So that's why I believe this committee would really like to see this house saved and restored. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further, Councillor Aronson?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I did want to speak just for a moment about the process. Westmount is, and rightly so, extremely proud of our built heritage, and we have taken enormous steps to preserve it under virtually all circumstances. It is extremely difficult to do what the present owners of this house are attempting to do, and to do it correctly, not only from the point of view of the architectural plan and the heritage, but also the procedure. It is extremely long. It is very frustrating, and it is sort of part of that's part of how it works. It takes a lot of perseverance to see the process through all the way, and to do so in a way where, as these owners have been, be open to other people providing constructive criticism and adopting it within a plan that at the end of the day concerns their own home, which is a difficult thing, would be a difficult thing for any of us to do. So for those who may fear that this council's decision may be the beginning of a slippery slope that results in every beautiful home in Westmount being interfered with, I assure you that the process works because it's difficult. And we've come to a moment now where, having done absolutely everything that has been asked of them, these owners have set a very, very good example to anybody who would like to come to Westmount and add to our community. At the same time, I'd like to just thank those members of the community who have taken an interest and become engaged citizens on this particular issue. After this decision, I hope that we can all leave this room understanding that all of us want the same thing. Those of us up here, those who work for the city, the owners who wish to improve their property and our community, those who want to preserve it. We all love this community, and we all want to make sure that it remains the heritage of the community remains for future generations. So as we leave here, I'd ask everybody, please, to remember that above all, we are neighbors, to remain civil with each other, and to respect this process because it has been done with good intentions from all parties. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Shammy.
I just want to add, Madam Mayor, to our councillors' comments, just how I also share their view, but also want to shout out to the wonderful privilege of our democracy. And it's okay to dissent and have different opinions. And this process that you so eloquently talked about and what this family has gone through makes me proud of our process in terms of the democracy that we live in, and that it's a privilege. And I just want to say that we need dialogue and conversation. And yes, we may be independent members on this council, but tonight we all came together and in a unified, closed ranks, and we made a decision, and we're proud of that decision. Thank you, Madam.
So on that note, I think everybody, we will adjourn. Is there any further commentary from the administration? I won't, I echo the sentiments of my colleagues, and I again want to thank the administration, thank the owners, Rob and Leslie. It was very important to hear the process from your point of view as well, and as well as the architects, Mira and Andrea from Architem, and all of you for participating tonight. So the meeting is adjourned. There's actually there's a second question period. Are there any further questions? No? All right, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much for coming. That was